I've always been a child around and about Christmas. My folks were especially good at doing Christmas, and it rubbed off on me. I've never grown out of it or beyond it. For the 20 plus years that I've had my own family, my own children, it's only made me fonder. Their childhoods gave me all the excuse I needed to extend my own indefinitely, wallowing in all that Christmas has always meant to me. As I'm sure is true for most, my first memory of hearing the story of the nativity, of the birth of Jesus, is from my earliest school days. I still regard it as one of the most comforting and hopeful stories of all. The bare outlines of what became the stuff of a gazillion nativity plays for children to perform, my own included, are split between the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. Mary and Joseph travelling to Bethlehem, no room at the inn, an infant laid in a manger, shepherds sent by an angel to see him, a guiding star, 3 kings bearing gifts. St. Francis of Assisi is credited with putting on the first nativity play in 1223, having been given permission by the Pope. Apparently his production featured a hay-lined manger, a donkey, an ox, and a sermon about the baby Jesus. Renaissance artists like Leonardo, Michelangelo, Botticelli and Raphael all painted nativity scenes and so fixed images in everyone's minds: the appearance of the angel, the adoration of the shepherds and kings, the flight of the Holy Family out of danger and into Egypt. Historians debate every scrap, of course, some speculating that it was only fiction, added many decades after the crucifixion to satisfy early Christian audiences keen to know the circumstances of the birth of their Messiah. I'm not moved either way by any of the speculation and doubt. None of it matters as far as I'm concerned. The story just works for me, like magic, always has and always will. As with so much in the Bible, there are layers of meaning that might be overlooked and yet carry so much weight. We get the reference to the inn from the Greek word kataluma that more accurately describes a room in an ordinary home offered to guests, travellers with nowhere else to go. The name Jesus means to deliver or to rescue. Bethlehem means house of bread, and Jesus is laid in a feeding trough for animals as a reminder that he will grow to be food for all, an invitation to a table from which their lowly status had previously left them excluded. Shepherds were the lowest of the low in Israelite society, but it was they who were sent by the angel to welcome Jesus first of all. The Christmas story is about kindness to strangers, help for those in need, about feeding the poorest and hungriest. If we forget Christmas, we forget what it is to be human, or perhaps humane. It's about a mother and her baby and hope everlasting in the darkest of times. It's a story about light kindled in the dark, and we tell it to our children in what might otherwise be the darkest week of the year here in the northern latitudes. December 25th was likely adopted as the date of the birth to unite and so include older traditions and festivals. The 25th was the date of the Roman festival of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, celebrating the coming of longer days and shorter nights after the winter solstice. It was close enough as well to Saturnalia, the mid-December festival when Romans sang songs, kindled lights, shared food and exchanged gifts. But for all that I love Christmas, like no other time of year, I'm hardly blind to the reality of the world just now. My children have intensified my pleasure in everything, the significance of everything, but that's double-edged. From the moment I had a child, children, it's been impossible to watch or hear about anything happening to other children, other people's children in other places, anything bad of any sort, without seeing the faces of my own, remembering always the vulnerability of my own. And when it comes to Christmas this year, like no year I remember before, I can't think about me and mine without contemplating what's happening in the benighted Holy Land where the story of Christmas began. Bethlehem, where we're told Jesus was born, sits now in the West Bank and has been under siege by Israeli forces since the start of the war. Would there still be a room at the inn this year for any lost souls? Some scholars say the Christians of Palestine, in Gaza and the West Bank, are the remnants of the oldest Christian community in the world, with roots in the early 1st century AD. They're known as living stones, a reference to the way the Apostle Peter, the big fisherman, described the role of the first faithful in laying the foundations, being the foundations of the house of God. It seems only a few hundred Christians are left in Gaza now, fewer every day as it turns out. In the week when the nativity story tells us about a mother and child, the Holy Family, another mother and child as precious as any others to those who loved them, Christians both, were shot dead within the compound of the Holy Family Church in Gaza, where they had been sheltering from the violence. In this week, when Silent Night is sung all over the Christian world, the leaders of the nominally Christian nations of the West are mostly silent too about the outrage. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem said that mother and daughter, Nahida and Simar Anton, were shot by a sniper in cold blood. He said one was killed as she tried to carry the other to safety. 7 more people were shot and wounded as they tried to protect others inside the church compound. No warning was given, no notification was provided. Together in prayer with the whole Christian community, we express our closeness and condolences to the families affected by this senseless tragedy. At the same time, we cannot but express that we are at a loss to comprehend how such an attack could be carried out, even more so as the whole church prepares for Christmas." End quote. While the Patriarchate accuses the Israel Defence Force of the killings, Israel disputes that version of events. But the mother and child are dead all the same, felled by bullets inside the compound of the Holy Family Church. It's hardly as though Christians are alone in dying in that place and at this time. All lives are sacred, and tens of thousands of Muslims and thousands of Jews have been slaughtered too in recent weeks. All people bleed the same colour. Here in the West, it's Christianity of all the faiths that is browbeaten into watering down its festivals, forgetting simple and ancient traditions that have brought comfort and hope to billions of people for more than 2,000 years. During the years just past, years of lockdown and oppression, censorship and coercion, the leaders of the Christian faith have been conspicuous by their silence at best, complicity with the authoritarians at worst. Church doors were closed and locked, congregations left to fend for themselves. What is a church without a congregation, after all? Just another empty building. Over and over, people were told Christmas didn't matter, that gathering with family would just have to be forgotten, that Christmas dinner was just another meal. More than ever before, we need Christmas and must reclaim it. Christmas, at least the best kind of Christmas, can promise so much, celebrates the best of what it is to be human and alive. It's all about gathering with loved ones, defying the dark and the cold. It's about the promise of the most optimistic and hopeful gift there is, which is the birth of a child. Hope of brighter future through the birth of a child is older than Christianity itself, was predicted long before the eventual coming of Jesus. The Roman poet Virgil, who died decades before the birth of Jesus Christ, wrote about the birth of a boy who would bring a golden age to the world, when wickedness would be taken away and the earth freed from fear. The child would receive the life of gods and reign over a world at peace. Precious little hope of that, as it turns out. More and more people have a growing unease about the state of the world. We're made anxious and kept anxious, set at each other's throats, when we should be directing our anger at those who have worked ceaselessly to make the world this way. The book of Isaiah was written around 700 BC. Christians believe Virgil was predicting Jesus Christ just as Isaiah was. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. It matters to remember those words, more of the story. I've mentioned before, and I will again now, a line etched in defiance into the wall of a basement by someone hiding from Nazis during World War II. I believe in the sun even when I cannot see it. I believe in love even when I do not feel it. I believe in God even when he is silent. It feels like we're all under siege now, not just in the beleaguered little town of Bethlehem, but the world over. We're on the outskirts of a dark place. All over the world, wars rage. The millions are on the move. People feel the cold, not just the cold of winter, but of an anti-human ideology that would take everything from us, including each other, including everything that makes Christmas so important. In all circumstances, it is possible, vital, to remember the light, to remember that light and warmth are real. But we can resist in simple and fundamental ways by keeping lights lit and fires warm wherever is possible, by keeping Christmas. Here's the thing, day follows night. Winter follows summer and autumn, but winter, even the darkest winter, knows that the spring is coming, that the spring always comes.